Hello and welcome to the Hurling Show here on Off the Ball. It was a big weekend of hurling the league semi-finals. We had Limerick 119, Dublin 116, Waterford 118, Galway 19 points. So it's Waterford Limerick this weekend. Michael Verney of the Irish Independent, how are you?
Good, Shane. A little bit starstruck, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you saw someone in the way in, something you liked?
I've had a big month now, yeah. Amy Huberman in the car park on the way here. Liz Hurley at Cheltenham. I was literally standing from me to you away from Liz Hurley.
And well, what you do about it?
Very little. My jaw was on the floor, to be honest with you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
A bit like the hurling, you started looking at it.
Yeah, but holy Jesus, yeah, it's been a big month, yeah.
Yeah, and what about Amy Huberman?
It's just even more perfect in real life than
Well, we've got
imagined.
Brian O'Driscoll here if you want to have a discussion. We don't. What did you make of the weekend's hurling?
Probably wasn't the best fair we've ever had, but I still I thought the first game was very, very interesting, I have to say.
Dublin against
Yeah,
Limerick.
it was different. Yeah. It was definitely different. Second game never really got going, and I'd have a lot of questions about Galway, to be honest with you, going forward. But two interesting games. Like people have to realise that not every hurling game is going to be a barn burner, like as well, you know. And fair play to Dublin in a sense for trying to stifle Limerick and not just going 15 on 15. If they thought that was the best way they could win the game, fair play to them for doing that. And they were well in the game, even with 20, 25 minutes to go. So I can't really have any complaints. But you're not going to get a perfect game of hurling every time you go out.
I actually thought both games were really, really intriguing. And you weren't there, so you probably watched them afterwards. So maybe the element of intrigue and not knowing what's going to happen by the end of the game was taken away from you. But like for those who didn't watch it, Dublin played with a sweeper. Sean Moran played as the extra man. They had 7 defenders. But to be fair, I don't think it's quite as simple as that. But there was a fair old fallout from how Dublin set up during that game and how Matty Kenny set the team up. And I think we have a couple of tweets coming up here. I'm not sure if they'll come up this second. But essentially, Eddie Brennan was pretty unhappy with how Dublin set up. And what he said was, God, this is ugly hurling. As near as it gets to all-out defending, which has destroyed Gaelic football. Dublin coming with a plan to saturate between the 45s and frustrating Limerick. So what I said back to him is, how is that much different from what Waterford, Limerick, Clare, Kilkenny, etc. do? They're all at it. And he goes, not to this extent. This is horrible and ugly crap, Shane. We all get the winning and results side of thing, but if skillful hurlers are going to get smothered and choked by numbers, people will not go to games. Rugby with hurls, no thanks. So it went on like that because I was looking to get more specifics in terms of what they were doing.
And because you were looking for a row.
Well, I'm always looking for a row, aren't I, really? So what's your thoughts on it? Is it rugby with hurleys?
I don't necessarily think so. And I still think, like, you can't say it's all out defending, because if it's all out defending, there'd be 10 lads between their goal line and the 45. Like, it's in the middle of the pitch where all the traffic is. Essentially, whoever wins the ball in there, you're trying to get out of the traffic, even if you have to go backwards and then bring it over the traffic. I don't think the skillful players have been taken out of it. Like, are you telling me that Cian Lynch didn't do 4 or 5 things last Sunday that everyone just thought, wow, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Particularly for the goal as well. So I don't think skill has been taken out of it. Teams are always going to look at doing something a little different. Like, and I have to admire Limerick. This does not resemble what they did last year, really. It's a lot different from what they did last year, I think. I think it's a lot more exaggerated, and fair play to them for not doing the same thing over and over again, because people are going to cotton on to them if they did the same thing over again. So I think it's interesting from their part that they're playing this style. This short passing style does lend itself to a lot more traffic, in fairness.
I'll put it to you this way. I think that Limerick are probably the most defensive team in the whole championship. Because if you put it like this, and Michael Dignan will look at his tweet as well about hand passing. They basically put their 2 wing forwards or 2 of their half forwards are inside their own half. Their wing backs drop back, their midfield drop back. So they obviously keep, maybe 4 attackers at the other side of the field. So they're completely swamping backwards. They're hand passing the ball around to each other, work it up to somewhere between the 265s, and then they'll deliver it into space. Yeah. So they've huge numbers back. And we have a couple of images coming up on the screen here just to prove that every team does it. Now, Dublin played with a straight up 7th defender. But if you're going to defend with 10, 11 people in your own half of the field, you're going to cut your cloth to suit your measure and decide what suits us best. And Matty obviously thought that Sean Moran as a sweeper was the best case scenario. So I think the images are coming up on screen here, and there are a lot of the 2018 images. Maybe they're not.
Is it not a bit mad, like, that people are... Dublin are the ones that people are ragging on?
Oh, sure, it's easy really to go after Dublin. Like, manufactured hurlers.
No,
that's nonsense here.
As well as the manufactured hurler thing, it's the fact that they actually play the sweeper. that they actually play a sweeper. Whereas if you play a sweeper, you get ragged on basically. If you just drag lads back, but there's no actually designated sweeper, it's okay. Because that's what Galway did in 2017, and it's what Limerick did last year, and it's what nearly all teams are doing now.
All the best
it's
teams
what Eddie's Kilkenny is doing.
Look at this. So this is an image I took. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 Limerick players. Never mind, their goalkeeper is back there as well, more or less inside their own
quarter-final last year, isn't it?
Yeah, the quarter-final last year. So, I mean, are you telling me that's worse than a 7th defender, or that a 7th defender is worse? We'll move on to the next picture. And there is Kilkenny with 12 players in their own half of the field when Limerick are going through looking for a score. The next image coming up now. Yeah, you can see there 9 players in a very, like, within 20 yards of each other on the Limerick team against Cork last year down in Park Queeve. And look at this, Kilkenny against Tipperary in the league final last year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 inside their own half, including inside their own 45. And there's a final one, Galway, with massive numbers in their own half against Kilkenny as well. So everyone is doing it. It's just a different version of the same defensive responsibilities.
Can I just say that's described as work rate.
Oh yeah,
that's described as work rate, and a sweeper is the devil basically. So, like, I just think it's a bit bizarre. I think it's a bit bizarre for people to be ragging on, particularly Dublin, so much. Like, what do you think? Like, do you think Dublin are in a better position going into the Leinster Championship now, having played a sweeper and been very, very competitive against the All-Ireland champions, or go straight up? Not that any team goes straight up anymore, and be beating 10 or 12 points going into the Leinster Championship. Like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and like Dublin were, like, for long spells they were close in this game. So it was 12 points to 13 after 50 minutes. Dublin didn't score for the next 15, and Limerick looked like they were going to go on and win by 10 or 15 points.
They had a lot of wides at the end, in fairness.
Yeah, they did, yeah. But like, if you're Matty Kenny, you're like, I've no Mark Schutte, I've no Conal Keaney, I've no Liam Rush, I've no Cian O'Callaghan. After 15 minutes, I've no Sean Tracy at midfield. I have no Oisin O'Rourke as my inside forward.
They were crippled, like they were actually crippled.
So
after 20
do you want me to go
minutes.
15 on 15 and let me hammer you just so you can be entertained?
Yeah.
Because God knows, Matty Kenny doesn't care if you're entertained or not. If I'm on the team, you don't think afterwards, were we an 8 out of 10 entertainment value today? No, we won or we lost. Yeah. And are they set up well for Leinster? They are.
You do what you have to do. As you said, you cut your cloth to measure on different days. As the game transpired, particularly in the first half, Dublin had to continue to cut, because that was like, it was either that or just take a shellacking basically, and they were never going to set themselves up to do that.
And nobody has come up against sweepers more than Matty Kenny in club hurling the last few years. Pretty much most days that we go out, there is a sweeper up against us. So if he had his full complement there, and if he thought he could win without it, he'd certainly do it. But and we've got a tweet coming up here from Michael Dignan, who's actually talking about the hand passing situation. He reckons it's gone overboard. He goes, I know I'll be considered old school by the modern men, but the short passing in hurling has gone way over the top. What are your thoughts on that?
There was an awful lot of hand passing. I thought about what I only watched the game actually. I only watched Dublin Limerick last night. I didn't get a chance to earlier on in the week, and I just thought, looking at it was the first time where it did maybe more resemble a football match. Just in that sector of the field, there was an awful lot of hand passing. Like, Tom Conley got the ball, and the first thing he wanted to do was hand pass it, and then the next man was going to hand pass it as well. But it's clever hand passing.
But sure, like, what they're doing is they're getting the ball in the back line, and it's obviously easier to do when you have an extra man. But why on earth would we just throw the ball up and blast it down the field to Sean Moran as the spare man? Because once or twice, and if you look back at the Limerick goal, I think it was Jake Malone was under a lot of pressure, and he just over his shoulder hit the ball at the field.
That's right.
Then the ball was worked from Condon to Burns, who hit a lovely crossfield ball that Cian Lynch probably caught, putting his hand out upside down, and he flicks it in after about 12 steps for 14 steps.
I was chatting to a referee about this last night, and he basically told me, if you take those quick steps like Lynch was taking, you can take as many as you want basically. You can. Like, he took 14 steps in the space of about maybe 7-8 metres, whereas if he actually took big steps running forward and took half those steps, he would have been blown. So it's funny, like, you know, the steps rule that's open to fair interpretation too. And
it's possession is king. That is why there's so much hand passing. Why would you turn good possession into 50-50 ball? Now, and I know everyone's got their opinion, and Michael is obviously entitled to his opinion. He's done a huge amount in the game over the years, so I'm not questioning him. It's just that point I absolutely disagree with.
And to be fair, all teams now in general, they work it to a point, usually the 65 or the midfield, and then the good ball comes in. Like, that makes sense. Like if I'm playing cornerback or wing back or something like that, and I'm under pressure, you're basically told now, never strike over your shoulder. I do believe, and I'd say you're probably of this opinion as well, there are times where a good long ball, no harm, keeps the defence honest and keeps your forward line honest as well.
When there's variety in play, it
exactly,
works really, really
well.
But
I don't see why people are ragging on it, to be honest with you.
So then the plus points for Dublin. I mean, it's pretty obvious who the goat of the week is. So we'll get that image up in a second.
Goat or a bull, I'd say.
Bull of the week, Eoin O'Donnell, no doubt. Look at him there. Absolutely flowing. That's an image from the Tipperary match the week before, but absolutely excellent player.
He was literally thrown, like he threw Graham Mulcahy to the ground 2 or 3 times. Like he was phenomenal, in fairness. Like he's so aggressive. Like he's so aggressive when in around his man. Like he was just, he just never thought he was going to lose a ball anytime the ball was in there around him. He's brilliant. He just kept bursting out. And like you're talking about, like not giving away the ball. There's a classic defender who head up straight away. And like the score that Sutcliffe got, I think it was a lovely crossfield ball from O'Donnell. Yeah. The 3rd point he got, I think, Where would you rate him in terms of the fullbacks? Because I put it out saying, another sensational performance up there with the best defenders and fullbacks in the country. Who's better? Which was not me saying that there is nobody better, just asking who's better. And a lot of people came back with Daithí Burke and Mike Casey, predictably and rightly enough. Where do you think Eoin O'Donnell is in the shake-up? Eoin O'Donnell's very kind of flexible in where he can play too, you see. He's probably nearly a better cornerback.
And he can play as man marker. You remember he's
a brilliant.
TJ Reid very quiet
He's a brilliant man marker. They're like him and Daithí Burke are 2 completely different types of players. Daithí Burke is probably a bit more old school type of fullback, but he can still play the man marking role as well. He can play the spoiling role. He's brilliant on the ball as well. I'd have probably O'Donnell just behind. He's probably a bit behind Daithí Burke, to be honest with you, just because you need to probably see it in Championship hurling over a period of a couple of years. Like Daithí Burke since 2015 he's hardly put a foot wrong.
Yeah, 4 All-Stars as well. Dublin puck-outs, a couple of them went a little bit awry, probably cost them a score or 2. That's something they'll need to tighten up.
They did, but when it's okay for a couple of them to go awry, because when they put the ball down top of the Limerick half-back line, it was a waste of time. So, there was one stage Dermot Burns hit a wide and the next puck-out came down on top of him, he touched it down and put it over the bar. So if they play a ball to the middle of the field to Whiteley or whoever was there and it's miscontrolled, not everyone is going to go to hand or go perfectly, but I'd rather that than just making heroes out of half-back line.
I was a bit interested to see that Tom Condon played as the sweeper rather than maybe put him over on someone else and let Dermot Burns clear up, because I think he'd do untold sort of damage. But James O'Connor joined Joe on Monday nights off the ball, and he spoke about how impressed he is at Limerick's squad depth.
It's been really impressive how well they've managed it. Now there is the caveat, Joe, that Tip, I suppose, after winning it in 2016 and 2017, looked like they were going really, really well, and then went pear-shaped in the league final against Galway, and then they never really recovered from it. And it's not, you have to stats back it up. It's not easy to do it, to put back-to-back titles together and to follow up Liam McCarthy with the league title. And I'm sure John Kiley and Paul Kinnerk and the Limerick backroom team, sat down and probably looked at all that and said, okay, what mistakes have been made in the past, and why haven't counties been able to retain it? And it's still only March. I mean, it's still a lot of hurling to be played between now and September. But one of the things I think that's important, in retaining it, if you're going to do it, is you have to have competition. You have to have guys looking over their shoulder, no complacency in terms of what the starting 15 is going to be, and that's what Limerick appear to have is genuine depth and genuine depth in most positions on the field, and therefore that I think is one of the biggest positives for them to take going forward. That okay, they probably had the strongest panel last year, but if anything they've added further depth, and that augurs well, I suppose, for the championship and the league final going ahead.
So this time last year, Limerick had a number of their players away playing with the Piershik. This year they've had everybody, so they can give the likes of Mike Casey game time from the start of the year, David Dempsey and a number of other guys. Do you, including Peter Casey, full forward, who had a tiny spoon of a hurley actually playing against Dublin the other day. Do you think Limerick are in a better place now, panel-wise?
Yeah, I thought they were in a great place last year. They are probably in a better place, to be honest with you. Did anybody know about Paddy O'Loughlin this time last year?
I actually think Dublin allowed him to get possession an awful lot, and I think he looked a bit unsure in possession at times. Now he's a great battler, but I think on the ball at times he's built it.
Probably not the best striker in the world, and maybe not the fastest striker in the world, but he's another option there. And obviously you have Tom Condon, who's come back, who played very, very little last year, really. Like, he's come back into the equation there. You have Conor Boylan, who's after coming into the half-forward line.
Morgan did a bit of damage on Tom Condon a few weeks back.
He did, yeah.
That was a week after he got man of the match.
Yeah,
so
in fairness,
not
like,
going hard on him now.
in fairness to Kiley, obviously he's not going to get rid of someone just because of one game, and he's played nearly every game in the league. And like, he was, I think he must have got 20 possessions in the first half the other day, and he didn't give away one of them. Looked very assured on the ball. But yeah, they have a serious panel. We didn't see Shane Dowling the other day. There's no sign of kind of Kevin Downs either. Mike Casey coming back, as you say, as well. Yeah, like, but the amazing thing is that, like, Sean Finn, who you wouldn't necessarily say is a full back, has been at his ease full back really throughout the league. Dan Morrissey, who hadn't played centre back, has slipped in there as well. So, like, Peter Casey played full forward the other day as well. Like, you have lads that are used to playing corners and wings coming into the centre and easily holding their own, like, and that's a great sign, to be fair.
What stood out to me was that if you look at their half-forward line, Grode Hegarty didn't get on the score sheet, Kyle Hayes didn't, Tom Morrissey got a point, and I believe he was taken off. Peter Casey got a point. Mulcahy got 3 in the first half, nothing in the second half, and was taken off. So it's not like they're playing irresistible hurling up front. Well, half of them are in their own half of the field anyways.
Yeah, well, like, I think, to be fair, they don't expect the half-hour line to score that much, but they expect...
Gallan with 1 from play as well, by the way.
I think he got 2.
Oh, did he?
I think he got 2, yeah. He had the goal chance, and he'd 1 over his right shoulder before that as well. But I think when the ball does go into the full forward line, it's usually 60-40, 70-30.
Yeah.
And another great thing that they have in there is that despite height disadvantages, Gallan is brilliant in the air. Peter Casey's brilliant in the air as well. So they have options. Obviously Flanagan came in off the bench as well. They have the closers as well. Like, Flanagan came in and the goal was like the score that was between them at the end of the day. So, like, while lads mightn't be contributing an awful lot, nearly everybody is chipping in with something. Like, Kyle Hayes didn't score the other day. He could easily get a couple of points at the weekend, or Tom Morrissey could step up. They have different lads. It's not the same lads every day, which, well, like, that's what Kilkenny were doing as well, like, you know.
Yeah, and do you think John Kiley was a little bit... he wasn't expecting to sweep it by the sounds of things, because he said afterwards, we hadn't met that kind of challenge before, maybe Wexford in the first game, but we would have been expecting it from Wexford. We were probably a little surprised when Dublin took that particular route. It was a frustrating game at times. Is that telling, those quotes?
I don't think it's particularly telling. I think it would have been more telling if they hadn't been able to adapt mid-game. And they did adapt mid-game. Like, it was a different. They played quite differently in the second half. And
is there a template laid now for other teams that are going to come up against Limerick this year? Because everyone knows they're going to have 11 and 12 players in their own half of the field when they don't have the ball, and of course the wing forwards will chase back up and try and get scores afterwards. But is there a little bit of a hint of a template now? Because Dublin did frustrate them. They
did frustrate them, yeah. Like, you talk about a template or a blueprint, usually you'd only kind of follow one of them if you look like winning the game or had won the game.
Dublin were down so many players.
I understand what you're saying, yeah. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Waterford adopted a sweeper again. It's something that they're obviously very comfortable with. If they know it's going to frustrate Limerick, I wouldn't be surprised. And they went, I heard Derek McGrath said after Limerick gave them a right hiding last year in Munster, and he said, I was a bit naive, I bought into the whole public kind of persona thing of, oh, we should play 15 on 15, particularly after the tip game. He played 15 on 15 and they got knocked out of the park, like. So wouldn't be a bit surprised if Waterford adopted a sweeper, given that they're comfortable with it. But you would hope, while I enjoyed last Sunday, you would hope every team doesn't go about it that way, because you do want to see Limerick in full flow. But you have to understand it as well. It's not any manager's duty to let another team play.
No.
Do you know what I mean? So a template of sorts, maybe, yeah.
Quite the opposite to, the last thing you'd be doing is trying to make it easy.
Particularly in provincial grounds. It is much tighter. Like, it's going to be more difficult for Waterford to do that in Croke Park. There is, like, no matter what anybody says, and maybe the physical dimensions aren't that much different to others, Croke Park is just bigger, it's wider.
Yeah,
like,
when you're in there, it just feels like a huge chasm, an endless chasm, whereas when you're in a tight little ground, it almost feels constricted.
Exactly, yeah. So it would be much easier in a provincial ground to adopt those tactics and really pack it out, whereas in Croke Park, third is a bit more difficult.
Let's talk about Galway, because they had a man advantage for the last 16 minutes after Mikey Kearney got sent off. Didn't manage to see it out against Waterford, lost by a couple of points. Joe Canning going off injured at the very end. At first it was a groin, then it was a dead leg, and you hear different rumours. Is he going to be out?
You'd wonder, wouldn't you?
6.5 weeks away from the opener against Carlow. Now you'd expect them to get over Carlow either way.
Well, we're definitely not going to find out the truth anyway, because if Gerard McInerney standing out in the field for the All-Ireland semi-final replay last year, even though he had no intention of starting, Donoghue's definitely not going to tell us whether he's going to be fit or not.
Are you suggesting he's duplicitous?
Possibly, yeah. Like that was when you actually look back at that, like that was a bit mad. Like Gerard McInerney in his gear, walking around doing the warm up, like not even doing the warm up, just being there. It was mad.
I'll give you a better one. Do you remember back in 2011 when Tip got annihilated in the All-Ireland semi-final against Kilkenny?
Yeah.
So Tip went out with a few lads that were quite injured. I think Tom Stapleton might have been sick. I think Conor O'Brien mightn't have been right. I might have the wrong names here because it's so long ago. But Conor O'Mahony had been injured coming into the game. During the warm-up, he was out in his runners and tracksuit, as far as I remember, but ended up playing the game anyway. So,
stop, because I never caught that.
Yeah, so that was a strange one. We have an image here of Micheál Donoghue wasn't happy with the tackles afterwards. He felt that Canning, who was taking the ball straight up the guts and running straight at Waterford looking for an equaliser at the end, and Donoghue wasn't happy with the tackles. Now, he didn't specify which one, and I don't think he was talking about Kevin Moore and burying Canning with the shoulder. But I wonder, is it this one from Colm Roach, which should be coming up on the screen right now? That's just a still image, and the arrows there showing in the direction of the hurley. But he seemed to pull across him quite hard, and I wonder, was that the one he was talking about? Was it a little bit reckless? It certainly didn't contribute to what could be a groin or a dead leg. I'd
say that the Stephen O'Keefe one he could have been referring to as well. Like Canning, there was two Waterford defenders went out and actually collided and just left Canning in through on goal basically, and O'Keefe literally threw himself at him. He was very, very brave, in fairness. I'd say he was
that save in the first half.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if he wasn't wearing a cup, because there's no way any man would throw themselves at a ball like that if they weren't being protected, shall we say. But in fairness, he actually blocked him with the hurl and ever so slightly followed through and just kind of took the leg from underneath him. He did look in a fair bit of distress after that now.
I actually saw Stephen O'Keefe on the bridge on Bagot Street on my walk here. He works in the area, but
he's no Amy Huberman, boy. He's an all-star, in fairness.
Yeah, I should have mentioned it. But I would imagine he probably is wearing a cup actually, because Mark Cooney, who's the goalkeeping coach with Waterford for the last number of years, did a bit with Coola before, and he told Sean Brennan, who's the Dublin sub-goalie.
It's too dangerous not to be honest.
And Sean told me before, it does kind of make you feel more confident about going for a ball when you're not worried about the family jewels. And
just on the Kevin Moore one, a referee kind of sent me on this the other day, just because a good
Which referee?
I can't tell you who it was, because a lot of people are confused about the rules. Everyone's like, how's that not free? How's that not free? He shouldered him as he was hitting the ball. Just quickly, it's rule 1.8. Player or players may tackle an opponent for the ball, provided that he's at least 1 foot in the ground. A player may make a shoulder-to-shoulder charge on an opponent, provided he's in possession, or an opponent who is in possession of the ball, who is playing the ball, or when both players are moving in the direction of the ball to play it. So Canning was playing the ball. It's perfectly legal to hit him as he did. It was a shoulder-to-shoulder tackle, so there was no problem with it.
I don't think anyone in the stadium had an issue with it at the time anyway.
A lot of people on TV did, particularly people who had Galway back to win the game.
What do you think of Galway in a broader sense? Do you think that they're evolving this year, or are they too reliant on Canning? Because even the other day, I think he was involved in a huge amount of their scores, got a couple from play. He set up the goal chance both for himself, that Stephen O'Keefe stopped, and the other one for Kevin Hussey, that I think he probably should have done better, whether he hit it straight at Saki. So are Galway evolving this year? Do you get any sense?
I'd have serious question marks, and this isn't just an overreaction because they were beaten the other day. Like if you look back through it, just go through the team. Like who are they going to play in goals? Genuinely now.
It was a mistake from Fergal Flannery, and even like
the puckouts weren't hectic now. And the week before there was at least one soft goal against Wexford as well.
James Scahill's on the bench at the moment.
Yeah, like Colm Callan has played one game this year. I think he played one of the league games this year, but that was his first competitive game to start since the 2017 All-Ireland final. So they have 3 goalies now. And it's a big deal, because it's not just stopping shots or whatever. The whole puck-out strategy revolves around the goalie. Like Flannery goes a lot short, has capable of going short now. It didn't work out great the other day. Skettle's more of a boomer. Callan can kind of mix the two, but is obviously not fit, or I'd imagine he would be playing. Then you go through the team last year. We've seen very little, if any, of Adrian Toohey, very little, if any, of John Hanbury. Dahi Burke was playing football all winter. Pádraig Mannion has switched into centre back, which I find.
They did that midway through last season anyway. They just happened to be wearing the same number,
Yeah.
Paul McInerney was wearing 6.
Another, it's a big position. It's a big switch to make as well. They've brought in a lot of young fellas. The midfield as well. Like I don't know if Johnny Cohen is going to stay in midfield, or they're going to keep Cathal Mannion midfield.
Yeah.
If they keep Cathal Mannion and David Burke midfield, then they don't necessarily have a marker midfield.
A Johnny Cohen.
A Johnny Cohen, basically, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, will Mannion go back up into the forward line? I'd imagine he will, because, like, apart from Joe they're struggling up there. And then you have Joseph Cooney, who doesn't look like he's coming back, and Johnny Glynn, who's not back yet. And if he were to pick up an injury or not be sharp, they'd be in trouble. Like, there's a lot of question marks. He's played a lot of new players, but a lot of question marks.
Conor Whelan played at 11 from the start of the game for long periods.
He looks like he's struggling a bit, yeah.
Wasn't really involved. And like last year, plan A, B and C became Johnny Glynn. Let's hammer the ball long on him. Yeah. And when Mike Casey was able to frustrate him in the All-Ireland final, essentially what was plan B, and they didn't really have one until I think Limerick got a bit of white line fever towards the end of the game, and it allowed Galway to get back into it. Obviously Canning played excellently towards the end of the game.
And just on that as well, like you mentioned about Limerick being quite good in game at adapting to tactics, I don't think Galway are at all, to be honest with you. When Galway have like a replay or something like that, like you look at the Kilkenny game or the Clare game, they come out kind of a different team. But adapting to tactics mid-game, like they didn't adapt to the Clare sweeper well at all. When Clare dropped a load of bodies behind the ball in the replay, didn't adapt to that well at all. So I'd have a lot of question marks about Galway, and there's a lot of pressure on the Star to deliver with Galway.
Yeah. And like you even think 50, they had an extra man and they missed 11 of their last 14 shots as well. It's a bit of, I don't know, that was worrying. We've the team that they played against, Waterford, obviously delighted to get back into a final. Now they've lost four big finals in a row now with Munsters and with the league final as well. Joined on the line now by Eoin Kelly, former Waterford star. Eoin, how are you doing?
Good, how are you, lads?
We're not too bad. What was your thoughts on Waterford's win against Galway?
It seemed to be fighting for each other a lot more. They seem to have a good attitude there, and they got over the line. That's all they need to do, I suppose. And look, it is a league semi-final, and the championship will be different, but it'll give them great confidence going into the year ahead.
When you look at how the team played for the last number of years under Derek McGrath, do you see much of a change this year under Pádraig Fanning?
The only real change I can see is they kind of seem to be leaving an extra couple of lads inside, which I suppose, look, tactics are tactics, and one manager will have different tactics to another, but it just seems to be suiting them better with Shane, Stephen especially, staying inside the whole time, that they seem a lot more dangerous, and they're getting good. Look, they got good scores in the Derek as well. They chalked up big scores, but they just seem to be a bit more dangerous up front this year, more so than the last couple of years.
And just coming into the league final this Sunday against Limerick, do you think this is a game that Waterford are very much in a position to win?
I presume so, yeah. Looking at it, the two teams will be going out to win it, I suppose. Limerick are obviously the team to beat this year, but it looks at it. And Waterford, as you said, have been beaten in the last four big finals, so to be mad to get over the line, I'd say, and get a bit of silverware. A lot of the lads only probably have a league medal bar Brick, and Mournes have a few more medals than that, but the more medals you win, at the end of the day, when you're finished and retired, you look back at what you won, not what you lost. Like, so the lads will be going hard to win it. I presume they will be anyway, do you know what I mean?
Oh, and just on something we were discussing earlier, just about how maybe Dublin frustrated Limerick playing a sweeper, do you expect maybe Waterford to adopt a similar tactic on Sunday?
It's hard to know. Like, Pádraig obviously wants the lads playing a system nearly the whole time, the one way, and I think you're nearly better off to stay with that system instead of changing it to suit other teams. I'd leave other teams worry about. That'd be if I was doing it, I'd just keep my tactic the whole time, the way you want the team to play for the year and get better at that system. So I don't see him playing a sweeper, being honest. It just seems to me that their wing forwards and centre forward are working a lot harder back the field, more so than, and leaving room inside for the three lads, more so than playing an actual sweeper, out and out sweeper, which they've done for the last couple of years.
Oh, and obviously you have a bit of history with Pádraig Fanning. He was your club manager at Mount Sion, and without going into too much depth, well, we will, but there was obviously a bit of an incident with yourself and Pádraig, which meant that you ended up transferring from Mount Sion to Passage back in around 2007. Can you give us the background to what happened there?
There was a lot of kind of I don't know. I think we're playing
Toomevara, wasn't it?
Toomevara in the semi-final or final of Munster, and I suppose I got dropped for the game. They felt that I wasn't in the right frame of mind to say or something to play. I don't really know, and it it wasn't. That was his decision as manager, and I respected it. It was other things that happened after that is why I left, not that reason alone. Like, you know what I mean? There was other things happened in the background, and that's why I left. And look, to me, it's water under the bridge. I went on, won an intermediate medal and a senior county medal. So it worked out grand for me, do you know what I mean? So I've no regrets over it. I have no animosity towards Pádraig over it, being honest.
Yeah, and at the time, like that game against Toomevara, when you weren't named in the team, did you leave the ground?
To say that again, yeah.
Just with that game against Toomevara, did you, when you weren't named in the team, did you leave the dressing room?
No.
Yeah.
No, I was on the field I was in the dugout up to a minute ago, I think, and they brought on the last sub, so I knew I wasn't coming on then, and I did leave the field then, all right, yeah.
Really? So
by the time I got to the corner, the field and knee of the game was over.
Right, okay. And like leaving the club, that must have been tough at the time as well, because it was a very public sort of thing.
Yeah, it was tough on the family too, like, you know, I had two brothers there outside the time as well, like, so it was a hard thing to do, but look, I think in the best interest of me outside, the best interest of myself was the best thing to do, and I stand by my decision. They probably stand by their decision. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and like at the time though, you were one of Waterford's main players. Like in the seasons just before that, you had some incredible times, and you were in your mid-20s as well. So, what was the reason that you weren't even playing in that game?
Dave, you'd have to ask Pádraig that. You know, I just don't know. You know, I really don't know, and that's been honest.
Yeah.
They probably felt the team was better without me. That was their decision as management, and they made it, so I just stand by their decision, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and just reflected on your days playing with Waterford, when did you play your best stuff with the county, and what was the reason for that?
I suppose it went on to the panel in 01. 02 had a good year. Not great in 03. I suppose I was only, 19 when the All-Standard probably took my foot off the pedal. I felt 04, 05 played well enough. 6 had a bit of a lull. 7 I thought it had a good year. 8 has obviously the good year, got nominated for Hurler of the Year. 9 felt it done alright. Probably looking back at that Munster final, I could have had 4 goals in the first 10 minutes, which I probably should have scored. 10 I put in a huge effort under Jimmy Payne training wise, personal training. Felt it had a good year, just missed opportunities. But look, I suppose the way the game has gone now, anyone kind of hitting 30 at all, you're nearly bet, you know what I mean, the way the training has gone. And I just felt that the legs were getting slow and that, and I just felt there was no point in hanging around just for the sake of it. That's why I kind of retired at 30, 31, whatever it was, in 11 or 12 or whatever year it was.
We've all been there with the legs getting a bit slower anyway. Owen, just on Sunday, like people would often say, like there is only like 2 basically national titles you can win. Like, so for Waterford to win a league title Sunday would obviously be a massive thing, and I'm sure you probably look back fondly on your league title that you won.
Yeah, it was a huge honour. You know, I remember, I think young John Meany rang me after the match, and he said, like, Jesus, only said the last time we won a league title, my father was playing. He said, and Lord mercy, I know old John, he was gone at the time, or nearly gone at the time. He could have been still alive, I'm not too sure. I think he was dead. But like, that's how much it meant to the people of Waterford at the time. Like, they probably hadn't seen a league title since '63, like I think it was. So then for the lads a couple of years ago then to win it under Derrick was another huge achievement. As you said, there's only 2 big national titles. That's an All-Ireland and a league. You know, unfortunately we couldn't put an All-Ireland with it that year in 07, but it's a massive honour to win anything. Munster, a league, or the All-Ireland, any of the 3 of them is a huge honour for anyone in Waterford, because we don't have loads of medals down here. Do you know what I mean? I was lucky enough to win 4 Munster and the National League, but that's probably going back then. You'd have to go back to the 50s when they won the All-Ireland. Do you know what I mean? That's how much people down here don't have medals. Great players never won anything.
What was your favourite day in the Waterford jersey?
Ooh, Jesus, good one.
Because straight away to us, I suppose, what comes to mind is those unbelievable games you had with Cork.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to go do a 4 Munster final against Cork.
Yeah.
Like to go down to 14 men and playing against the Breeze, and they were reigning All-Ireland champions, to go on and win it was just an unbelievable feat. I suppose the bad times you look at is the amount of semi-finals we lost, and obviously the All-Ireland against Kilkenny in 8. But they were great days, you know, like for when I was growing up, Waterford never even, if they got to a Munster final, lucky enough they could get an awful hiding. So to play in big days, without any time you put on a Waterford jersey was special, do you know what I mean? But when you were winning on big days, I suppose it made it all the sweeter.
How close do you think the current crop are on to making that big breakthrough?
Extremely close. Extremely close. They're like we had a lot of them lads under 21 and 16, and over the couple of years, like Carolines was on the team this year, and we had him last year, the year before, and they're a great bunch of lads. They're great to train. Looking from a fella from the outside in there, I don't know, but they're great lads to train. That like, and there's no, like, I suppose we were unfortunate at a time that we had probably the best Kilkenny team of all time. We had the best Cork team of all time, nearly. You had a good Tip team, you had a good Clare team. There is a good crop of Waterford players there, and there's no real standout team where you're kind of shaking your boots looking at them, do you know, that kind of way.
Yeah.
So the only problem is it's hard to get out of Munster.
And Eoin, when you look at another Mount Sion man, Austin Gleeson, absolutely sensational against Clare, 5 points from play. Very quiet against Galway. He got 1 point, but largely was uninvolved playing at wing forward. How do Waterford get the best out of him, or is it more about Austin getting the best out of himself?
It's a bit of both. I suppose. The biggest problem, and I feel sorry for Austin to an extent, is where is his best position? Where does he play? Like, if you analyse any game, where does the chap actually play? Like, does he play full forward? Is he playing wing forward? Is he in corner forward? Is he midfield? You don't know where the chap actually plays, and I'd say he don't know where he plays. And I think to nail down an actual position for him and say, you're playing here, and you're going to be there the following week and the following week and the following week. He seems to be kind of a bit all over the shop where he's playing, like. Yeah.
And just a final word then on your club mate Noel Connors. Is there any chance you could tell him to wear a pair of togs that fit him?
Jeez, I know. The pair of legs on him, sure, they're like tree trunks. But I've never met anyone as professional as the chap. The way he trains, the way he diets, everything. Even when he comes back to the passage, he's a different animal. Do you know what I mean? He's so serious. Well, not so serious, but he just takes the game to a different level, and what fellas should be probably at the whole time. You're not going to win.
I presume, Owen, you've probably marked him a lot of times that he's an absolute pest. Like, he always seems to be just up on top of you, like.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. You go over training. Oh, Jesus, might be over for a bit of crack on Tuesday, like. And this fella, he flaking you, like, Jesus Christ, wait, leave me alone. But I know he's probably one of the best cornerbacks over the last 6, 7, 8 years. He's very rarely you'd say he actually got a roast. You know what I mean? When you see like Pat Hogg and these fellas going in on him, and to be looking to get a point from playoff, that's how actually good he is. You know what I mean?
Oh, who would be the best player you ever played with or against during your career?
Played with?
Yeah, with or against, or both?
With, I probably played with two of the best forwards that I played with were probably Dan and Flynn. They were different class, like, you know what I mean? The goals they got. Geez, if you went out and the day was raining, you could have Finner turn the sun out and he'd do it with a ball. Like, he was that good. That's being honest. The chap was that good. Dan was the same. He had that purple patch from 4 to 10, where you'd be looking around and the game be 14 points on, you'd say, Dan hasn't got a goal yet. Do you know what I mean? He was nearly unmarkable over them years. But the two of them were awesome. And I suppose the best I only played against him a couple of times now, was Déise. I thought he was just unbelievable what he could do. Himself and Eoin Kelly, the two of them were very talented forwards, wing forwards, centre forwards, wherever they played. The two of them were exceptionally good.
And we just to finish up then, what's your prediction for Sunday's match?
I can see Waterford getting over the line here.
Right.
Barely. I think that there is a small bit more hunger there, hopefully, than Limerick. Now, look, I think Championship, I know we have them at home, it'd be a different game, but I can just see them getting over the line. I think I suppose since they won the league back that couple of years ago, that team hasn't won anything since. They've lost an All-Ireland, they lost Munster final, they lost another league final to Clare, so they're probably just that bit more hungry, let's say, and to get up to Croke Park after not playing there last year, I can see him hopefully just get over the line.
Thank you very much, Owen. I'm sure we'll chat to you again soon.
Cheers, Ron. Two things about him. The day Milan terrorised me, he absolutely terrorised us. I think he scored 2-13 in Thurles. Something like 1-8 from frees, 1-5 from play. And Noel Connors as well. I'd like to wish him luck. I think his missus is expecting a baby today, actually. Yeah, so he'll be busy, I'd say, coming up to this league final. Hopefully it'll be a double celebration with a bit of luck. Absolutely.
Do you know, it's a decade since possibly the greatest league final of all time, the Tipperary against Kilkenny game in Thurles. Tipperary 4-17, Kilkenny winning with 2:26 extra time. Richie Hogan scored 110. I think there was something like 7 frees in there.
7 frees, yeah.
But was that the greatest league final of all time? There's my brother jumping all over Taggy.
Who scored 1-5 that day?
No, I will say Paddy had a great game, and the goal was someone else.
Paddy always has a great game in your
right. And listen, someone soloed in, hand passed it over his head, he had to go to him. What are you supposed to do as a cornerback? And you were a cornerback who had a lot scored at it.
That's true, yeah.
And that was actually the last year that you didn't have to wear a helmet. There's Paddy Maher, who played centre back, and do you remember there was the experimental yellow card?
Oh, that was a disaster.
You got the yellow card and you had to be substituted. So
Comerford
Henry Shefflin was substituted.
Yeah, Comerford came on for someone in the 11th minute and went off in the 13th minute. Did him and Declan Fanning go at each other straight away the minute he came on the field? I think they did.
Jeez, I don't remember.
I think they did, because Fanning got a yellow as well, as far as I can remember.
Yeah.
But that was a mad game. We actually we beat Wexford in the Division 2 final before that.
113-13, an absolute howler of a game.
I was absolutely miserable because I didn't get a run or anything like that. And
there's the match program.
That's it. Yeah. I was sitting in the stand for obviously our game, and then I was sitting in the stand again watching this. But this was phenomenal, and you knew from the first minute that it was just the intensity difference between the two. Like they were like two different worlds. In all fairness,
if you look at that there, number 18 on the awfully panel is who?
Surprised it wasn't further down.
It was, of course, Michael Verney, number 18 on the panel. We'll cycle on to the... look, here are the profiles. Michael Verney, age 22, height 5'10", weight 13 stone, occupation student. 5'10", you trying to squeeze an inch in on me?
5'10 and a half, actually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
do you remember that line from Full Metal Jacket?
No, go on.
I didn't know they stack shit that high.
But that game was unreal. Like, I remember Noel McGrath was 18 playing that day, and he scored, I think, 1-4 off Jackie. He gave him a right scotch, and Pádraig Maher, that was kind of I know they won the league the year before, but that was when Pádraig Maher announced himself on the kind of national stage. He was phenomenal that day, centre back as well.
Seamus Callan, I think, he broke the collarbone of Brian Hogan with a shoulder as well. There's the tip team from the day as well. James Woodlock was actually playing wing forward that day.
That's right,
Tom Stapleton and Shane McGrath midfield. Yeah, Michael Webster in full forward. There's the brother, 5'10". I'm not sure about that, Paddy. Yeah, that was a fantastic game, and possibly, that was the first time that Tip really put it up to that Kilkenny team, because you mentioned winning the league the year before. That was against Galway. Was that the birth of modern hurling? Because before that, you're talking about tennis matches between Cork and Waterford.
Just actually, remember 6 weeks before that, Kilkenny gave Tip an awful pasting in Nowlan Park.
19 points.
17 points. And Brendan Cummins says in his book like that, one of the best things Liam Sheedy ever did was he came into the dressing room and basically told him, lads, I'm taking this one. This is on me. I'm going to absolve you from all blame. And he went out to the media and did the same as well. Jesus, yeah, he still looks like a Lego man.
Yeah, he was TV poking the ball around.
But to be fair, I think it probably was the genesis of the genesis of the greatest rivalry that still continues on, and probably the physicality involved as well, and the tracking back, and how areas were condensed, even not as much as they are now, but between the 245s, that was probably the start of it. That was the start of it. It was basically who wins that dirty ball when there's a load of balls in 45 and gets the ball in as fast.
Yeah,
that was essentially it.
Kilkenny had obviously been doing that for a number of years at that point, but it was the first time that someone else says, okay, we'll do it as well.
Yeah.
And then from then on, they've been doing that, and maybe other teams like Limerick look like an identikit Kilkenny to some degree.
Yeah.
Maybe even more extreme in some senses, and Galway, Clare even. So a lot of teams have followed the template that we saw
exactly,
10 years ago.
And that game was the kind of the announcement of Richie Hogan on the stage as well. It was kind of TJ as well. They both played the year before. Richie had a frustrating kind of 2008 and then announced himself in 2009. But it's one of those games that people kind of never forget. Like, it was, because it was up there with their All-Ireland finals of 9 and 10.
Yeah, it was
standard wise.
Last subject that I want to talk to you about before we finish up is Cork GAA came out with a set of proposals. So 3 proposals. Option A and B proposed 2 club championship structures that would see games played either side of the All-Ireland Championship Series, and the third option is basically opting to play a selection of club championship games across the summer months, and the proposal would see Cork clubs playing a number of their games without their inter-county players. What would you make of that? So essentially there'd be probably, let's say you had 5 group games, for example, that the ones that without county players would be worth 2 points each maybe, and the ones with county players
This is championship now, yeah?
This is club championship, yeah.
Whatever about league, that's okay in league, and I know that works well. I believe in Monaghan, I think it's 4 points for a win with your county players,
Yeah.
2 points without. Like, imagine investing, you know, 15 or 20 years in a player and then not having them for a championship game.
Yeah.
I know, seriously. Like, I think it's bananas. There's no way you could agree to that.
You're actually, you know, even from the the county player's point of view, most of the year he's kept away from the guys he grew up with, his club mates, his friends, and can't play with them in the first place. Now, he's obviously off enjoying county, but he'd like to contribute to
he'd
his
love
club
to,
as well.
100%.
So
yeah.
imagine being told, by the way, we're going to tip away and play the club championship without you, and tough.
Can you imagine, because I've been that county player coming back that hasn't been there for, you know, 40 sessions, and you are missing out because it's a different dressing room,
Yeah.
different training, different crack, different people have been slagged, you know, everything. You're coming back in, and it is a weird kind of sensation, like, especially as a younger player, coming in back as a more experienced player, like, you have a thick skin, like, it's not, boys hopping off you, oh, look, this lad's back or whatever, but when you're young, it's different, you know, and you would kind of nearly take it to heart, like, and it's an awful position to be putting a county player in, I think, if that were the case.
Now, some people would have suggested, when I tweeted heavily against this idea, and a couple of people suggested to me, maybe it's simply a case that Kevin O'Donovan, who's involved in Cork GAA, that he's basically trying to stir a debate by putting this sort of worst case scenario out there to get the conversation going. And if he is doing that, then fair enough, I understand why he's doing that. I hate the proposal, but I like the idea that the conversation is out there. Yeah,
I think if there was a bit of miscommunication between him and John Myler at the weekend as well, because Cork county players were, in his opinion, were supposed to be available to play league games last Sunday, but John Myler had organised some sort of session or meet-up, so basically none of them were able to play their club games. So there was a big kind of he said it will never happen again or whatever, but it just goes to show you, like, it's like I just always say, like, a club player, you start out in your club, you finish in your club, and you should have the opportunity and be available to be seen regularly with your club throughout the year. Like, regularly, like, to me, like, and I know Kilkenny only have hurling and whatever, but they do regularly go back to their clubs, they play league games regularly, and it just, I don't know, it gives lads more opportunities to play games. Maybe you're not hurling out to county, maybe go back and hurl well in a club game with the club, and you bring more confidence back to the county. I just think that's a win-win. I think, like, segregating them off and keeping them towards the county, it would be a disaster of itself, in my view now. Actually, even last Sunday, there was a round of league games in Dublin on Sunday morning, and then the game at 1:30 in... No, it's wrong like that. No, yeah. Like, you're just, like... If you've loads of county mates playing with your club, you want to be able to play your club game, and you want to be able to go and support them for your second county. Yeah. But, like, and it's the same, like, you do wonder, like, do these lads be thinking, like, it's not ideal, I know, and I know Offaly aren't in the league final, but there's, like, club championship on, like, Sunday at 1:30. A double header in Bur, just if anyone wants to go as well. Yeah, double header in Bur. That's a 1:30. That's a 1:30. Well, it is, yeah. No, it's the real home of hurling, because that's where the first All-Ireland final was played. Look, Thurles is the home of hurling. So, like, we're playing that game is a 1:30, and then the league final is at 2, like. Do you know what I mean? Surely it would make more sense to have the games at 5 or 6. Well, even last year, like, the Munster hurling final was on at 2:00 or 2:30, and the Joe McDonagh final started within a half an hour of it, so you couldn't watch both if you wanted to. Yeah, no, which was not a great situation. No. The league final this weekend, how do you see it going? Kind of like Eoin as well. I have kind of a sneaking suspicion that Waterford might pull it off. It was a fair result the other day, considering. Did any of their forwards play well the other day?
Do you know, actually, that's interesting, because Waterford's full forward line of Tommy Ryan, who scored a Tommy Ryan point down the sideline.
Tommy Ryan.
So Tommy Ryan, Stephen Bennett and Shane Bennett had scored 10 goals between them in the league before that game, and they were largely stifled throughout.
Shane had the goal chance stopped, but apart from that, they weren't really in the game.
Yeah,
you know?
half forward line. Pádraig Mahoney, I thought, was quiet for long spells, but he stepped up towards the end, as he normally does. And yeah, after that, like, Gleeson was very quiet as well. It's probably a game they should have lost.
Probably is, yeah. And you'd expect 2 or 3 of them to catch fire on Sunday.
Especially when you consider that Galway had fairly much a full back line that's not going to start in the championship. So it was Paul Killeen, Ronan Burke and Darren Morrissey. Actually, Grode McInerney played full back.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, he was marking Stephen Bennett, so there was a bit of a rejig there. But they had a lot of guys that probably won't necessarily start in championship. So I don't know, in a way, like, it depends on what team Limerick put out as well. Are they going to continue to experiment, you know, like one new guy per line on the field like they have been doing? Or are they going to say, do you know what, there's a national title here, we're going full strong?
I'd say the latter, to be honest with you. Declan Hanlon will come back in centre back. Paddy O'Loughlin probably dropped to the bench, and Dan Morrison go to the wing. Against Waterford, be interesting to see. Yeah, he kind of offers them something even more different, like if they're going really kind of direct as well, because he's such a good ball winner.
Will Mike Casey come back in, do you think? He was on the bench the other day.
Yeah, it'd be a big thing to start a league final. I'd say he might come in for 15 or 20 minutes, and then they'll give him the club break, and then he'll probably be ready to go for championship. But it'd be a big one to come in and start a league final. They're his only minutes now, since the All-Ireland final, basically.
It's going to be blanket midfields here again, and both teams trying to isolate their inside line as well. So
that's the way it is. Yeah, it's far more difficult to do in Croke Park.
I'd say I thought that Tadhg de Búrca, who's missed a lot of time this year, and you know, he had the concussion last year, and I think that kind of dragged on for a while. He probably didn't look quite as sharp.
No, he needed that. Yeah, he'll come on for that.
He'll come on a bit, but like. It'll just be interesting to see who the matchups are, because Philip Mahoney will be there in the half back line. You'd imagine Tadhg de Búrca will, and Kevin Moran, who seems to be, you know, he's found a home at number 6 this year, albeit switching around to different half back line positions as well. So put your neck on the block.
Yeah, I think Waterford could scrape over. Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked myself around.
I think they have the speed. I think they have the speed to. Like, if you look, Dan Morrissey looked in a bit of trouble the other day. I just think it's a classic one. Sutcliffe caused them big trouble, particularly in the first 40 minutes. I just think Waterford will have the speed to try and put particularly their half back line on the back foot. And like, they haven't really been tested.
Actually, another point, I meant to mention this earlier, because Danny Sutcliffe was roaming out around midfield, which pretty much every team is doing that. Their half hours are roaming. Galway did, in a way, have a sweeper as well, because Pádraig Mannion was standing back on his own, basically just waiting for the ball to come to him as well. So if you don't follow the forwards out the field, you kind of have a sweeper to some degree. Now, I know it's different when you have a 7th defender like Dublin had, so it's not that I don't realise
most centre backs are playing that type of role now as well.
There was one comment actually just before we finished. John Stafford on YouTube: Limerick played a sweeper too, Shane. If they didn't want to play one, why didn't they push up? Because it'd be silly to push up. Why on earth? You would never allow 5-on-5 in your own half of the field if you're actually thinking correctly. Having 7-on-6 means that it's clogged up area. 5-on-5 means there's nothing but space for forwards to work in.
The only time you might do that is you definitely wouldn't start off that way. But like, if you were, maybe if nothing was happening up in your forward line, or the free man was getting on a lot of ball and you were comfortable with your defence, or maybe your sweeper wasn't having a big impact on the game, you might try something different. I remember Tyrone did that years ago in the football, didn't they? They pushed up their sweeper. But it's something that you would definitely wouldn't try from the start unless things were going kind of outrageously well, you know.
So I'm going to go for Limerick, you're going to go for Waterford.
I'm going to go for Waterford, yeah. Just another kind of couple of big games at the weekend as well. Obviously the Camogie final is in Croke Park, 12 o'clock is not exactly ideal, but it is on the box as well. I think Kilkenny are going for 4 in a row, which would be, they're playing Galway, which would be interesting. I'd say they probably will get over the line again. They think they've just dominated the league the last couple of years. And then on Saturday, the 2 colleges finals are on. Kieran's are going for, I think, their 5th colleges All-Ireland.
See, they were playing a soccer match the other day. They were playing a soccer match, and at half time, and was it before the match as well?
Yeah.
They were pucking around balls when they were doing.
Imagine like the soccer aficionados at that.
Kevin Connor tweeted saying Kieran's College have arrived here at Sculvura to play the quarter-final of a soccer competition. They all brought their hurls and the subs are pucking around on the sideline. And there it is, half-time show here, and they're poking the ball around with their hurleys, not their hurls.
Hurls, yeah.
Hurleys.
I'd say there's some like soccer buffs going absolutely bananas. Like.
The match finished 1-1, and I think they lost 2-1 after extra time as well. But good that the subs left the sideline and they were poking around just to warm up as well. Yeah, hurls flying everywhere. Kieran's 2-1 up. Yeah, they lost 3-2 actually, as far as I remember correctly. So I think that's about the height of it.
Yeah, perfect,
that's it from the Hurling Show again this week. Enjoy the league final this weekend. We'll be back with the Hurling Show next Thursday at 3 p.m. and the Gaelic Football Show at 12:30 next Wednesday. We'll chat to you then.